Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to session 3 of Data Camp. Couple housekeeping notes before we get into it. If you guys do utilize the chat function, please be sure to select all panelists when you send that. That way everybody can see it. And Q&A we will monitor throughout this presentation. I'm going to hand it over now to Jessica Granger, Manager of Organizational Development, and Melissa Hinshaw, Director of Organizational Development for Data and Employee Engagement. Is it a thing?
Thank you, Cameron. Thank you all again. I'm Melissa Hinshaw, excited to be here today alongside Jessica Granger to talk a little bit about data and employee engagement, and is that even a thing? So we're happy to have you here. Hope you're enjoying your day at Data Camp. I know I've really enjoyed the sessions I've attended so far today as well. So today we're gonna talk just about that employee engagement, data. How do they go hand in hand? How does that work? And how do we use it in our roles in organizational development to measure what we need to do and to help guide us as far as how that impacts engagement, and therefore, you know, even working mostly with faculty and staff, how does that trickle down to our students? So again, if you are have questions or thoughts, feel free to put that in the Q&A, and anything in the chat can go to panelists so we can see that for you. So Jessica, if you'll go to the next slide, we'll get started here. Now, I know we've all heard about engagement. What does that look like? Where are we? What does it really mean to us here at Lone Star? So I'm just going to share a few stats. These are just overall, not specifically related to Lone Star, but if you've heard anything similar, read something similar to this regarding engagement, you know, we can put a Y in the chat. Just let us know, yes, you've seen or heard something along these lines. So first one, 74% of employees don't believe they are reaching their full potential. Unfortunately, maybe some of us have heard or read that. We always hope it's not happening to us, right? I see some yeses, right? So I'm not the only one here. And, you know, these are all from different sources. So that's from Learning Wave. If we look over to Clear Company, they tell us that 76% of employees are looking for career growth opportunities. The opportunities, you know, help show clear investment by the organization and investment in their employees. So that's what they were wanting. And then if we hop to go to HR, they tell us that 40% of employees with poor training will leave the company within the first year. So if that employee is dissatisfied and disengaged with the company, they're not going to stay with them. Professional growth through training plays a big part in keeping them there with the company. And then Gallup, this is the one that really shocks me. Gallup says that only 13% of employees worldwide are engaged. That one hurts me a little bit. It seems so low. And, you know, thinking about engagement, what does that look like? So if we think about our engagement here at Lone Star College, I know, you know, we have a lot that are really engaged and we do some great things and we're doing well as an organization and we're doing well with our students and for our students. But think if we were able to even increase that engagement and therefore that retention, you know, what benefits would come from that, not just for us as employees, but even for our students. And you might be thinking, well, okay, I get that, I've heard that, but this last year was just a washout, right? We had the pandemic, it was rough. Did learning and engagement really play a part, and what did that look like? And interestingly enough, it played a huge part, and the need for learning and growth didn't go away during the pandemic. I know we were super busy, but if we ignored it, it could hurt us a little bit. So it was actually more valuable and more important to think about learning and growth and to focus on that as we went through this past year. And we were looking at an article from Inc.com about 5 ways leaders can prepare for 2021. So we're looking at our data in OD, but also what's going on just in general around the world. And it was interesting to see some of the things mentioned in that article really related to our work and learning and how that will look for us moving forward. One of them was don't let the location limit you, right? So you've probably heard a little bit about everyone working remote and one thing people have seen is, hey, if I'm looking for a job, I can look for something that doesn't have to be right in my community if it's remote, right? But the same thing went for learning. It expands the opportunities when we've got more than just the face-to-face in-person opportunities for learning. There's more ways to learn. You might be able to do it from across campuses like we're doing today, right? Another thing mentioned was to be prepared to bridge the gap between office and remote employees. So again, just like we're doing today, how are we going to continue to learn as we still have some that are coming back to office, some that are remote? What is that going to look like moving forward, and what's the importance of that? And then conferences, we'll talk a little bit more about this later too, but the bigger events, the article stated how those were going to be more hybrid in the future. So looking at those large events and not having them completely in person as before, but maybe more of a hybrid option. And then finally, prioritizing well-being of employees and employee learning. Learning was seen as a huge benefit, especially in times of change, crisis, and the pandemic, where some things that we usually have for our employees, some of those benefits, even thinking of salaries or raises where that wasn't an option and had to be put on hold, learning continued and employees saw that as a benefit, and that helped with the retention and the engagement. LSC has a focus on this definitely through our cultural belief of choose learning. And so it's important, especially for us in organizational development, to continue to make sure that that was happening even through the pandemic, and to continue to provide those learning opportunities. But the way we had to do that showed up very differently. It looked different. The way we went about it was a little bit different. So we're going to share some of that with y'all today, and what we found through the data, especially over this past year with the learning looking so different for us. So if we go to the next slide, we'll see all the different learning modalities. And I'm going to go through these a little bit briefly because I know some people, it can get confusing to know what we see these terms and we're wondering what exactly does this mean? How is on-demand different from a webinar, and vice versa? So, the first adjustment we made was we had to go virtual. At that time, we didn't have a choice. If we wanted our learning to continue, we had to go virtual. So there were live webinars. With the live webinars, that is just like we're doing today. We're all here at the same time. We can talk and chat and do things like that as far as our engagement. Then there was the recorded. So just like Cameron mentioned, this is being recorded. So if you are to go back and watch it later, that's a recorded webinar. We won't all be on here together at the same time, being able to chat and such, but it's still available. And then we've got two different on-demand options. You'll see a little bit difference here in the writing. So the on-demand, that's just pertaining to things that we do out of organizational development that may be developed using Articulate, different platforms such as this. The on-demand together there, those, again, the end result is the same on the user end, but that is for maybe there is someone, maybe one of you, you're like, I have some great information I want to share. I don't have any experience with creating an on-demand. I don't do it that often, but I really want to get it out there. You can work with us to help you create it. So we're helping create it, but the content is coming outside of our area. And then finally, micro learnings. And these are those small tidbit learnings that are 5 to 10 minutes long, somewhere around there. They're short, but they're actually growing in popularity, as we've seen throughout the past couple years especially. So as we went through this, just to kind of show you this past year, just for our smaller team in organizational development that Jessica and I are on, which is our learning and development and organizational development, we went through to see how was our attendance and what did that look like. And the live webinars, we had the most attendance, but it made sense. We also, those were the ones that we offered the most. So we had close to a little over 1,700 who attended the live webinars. The recorded webinars weren't too far behind, 405, and then our on-demands, whether either type of on-demand, the total there was 620. And then micro learnings, which we don't have quite as many of those, but we did have 60 that were able to complete those micro learnings. But what was interesting is when we went back and looked at the previous year, our total number of sessions was a little bit less. We offered about 20 less opportunities, but our attendance grew. We actually had an average per session that was just double what we had the previous year. So right there, that's telling us a lot about what type of modalities our employees are wanting, what's helpful to them, what's useful, and we're really starting to use and look at this going forward to know that some things will go back to what it looked like before, but there are some things that we're going to keep that we didn't do so much of prior to the pandemic. So it's been very interesting to see this, and I'm interested to see where you like to learn. So I'm gonna, if you don't mind, Jessica, oh, there you go, great. Jessica's gonna put up this Menti code. If you go to menti.com, or you can just put your camera up to that QR code, it's gonna take you to a Mentimeter, and I'll also put the link in the chat in case that helps anyone. You can also just click on that link. So what you're going to see there is just what's your preferred learning modality. Is it an in-person? Is it a live webinar like this, a recorded one, an on-demand, or the short micro learnings? So let us know what you think. I want to see how it represents what we have here. Oh, good. Oh, thank you. Jessica got that pulled up. So good. They're coming in. So most like the in-person, right? I've missed some of that too, for sure. Some things are just easier done in person. And you have that connection. Then next, oh good. So live webinar. Oh, code is 5826878. I'll put that in the chat. 5826878. It's also should be showing at the top of the screen there, right above the question. All right, so majority of us so far enjoy the in-person, right? Learning is a social activity. Yes, thanks, Pamela. And then we're tied here for live and recorded webinar, and then on demand, and then finally the micro learning. Awesome. Great. Well, thank you for participating. So, we will all be glad, I think, to have that face-to-face option at least there available in the near future as we start to come back in person. But we see too sometimes, if we're not able to make it in person, that having that recording or just being able to hop on if we can't travel and be able to be there via the virtual Webex or Zoom, that's kind of a cool option to have too when we're not able to get there in person. So we'll talk more about that, but I'm going to turn it over to Jessica now, who's going to share a little bit more about what we had to do to get ready for this.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Mel, for that introduction. And so, yeah, as Melissa just mentioned, that we had a giant task of moving everything virtually in a really small amount of time. We really just had to rely on our Webex platforms. And so as a department, we needed to do a lot of research to see, what was best for our department, what was best for our learners, and so what would really work best for our needs. And at that time, Webex had a lot of platforms that we needed to look at. We had to look at Webex meetings, Webex events, and Webex trainings, and we needed to really deduce, what's best for that. And so through that research, we came up with some courses that you're going to see here. And so our first one was our Webex 101 sessions. And these were designed, they were hour-long sessions that really gave an overview of all of the Webex platforms. So you got a brief introduction as to when and why to use your personal room, or when to use Webex meetings, or when you needed to transition to events, and when you needed to transition to trainings. However, throughout some of those sessions, we really found out that Webex meetings was our preferred platform. We found out that it could host the large number of participants that we were looking for, but it also held a lot of engaging activities. You were able for everyone to see the participants, you could see the chat, and you could later on, they added the breakout rooms, which were really helpful for our faculty who needed to host classes online. And so those were some fun sessions, and a lot of learning occurred when those. And then we had our Webex practice sessions. And so after our Webex practice sessions, these were very, very highly attended. These sessions were actually designed for hands-on. So we created a course to where participants could really work through the session. And so they were specifically designed for our faculty, but they were open for all people to attend. So we actually had classes with faculty and staff in them, which actually worked out really well because faculty and staff were able to learn from each other. They were able to create classrooms and share just different tips and tricks that have worked for them in the classroom versus what has worked in meeting, and kind of combine those experiences to be able to create a very collaborative online community with the classroom. And then, yes, as Melissa mentioned, yes, we learned something new in Webex every day. I feel like I am always behind with my learning on that. And then lastly, we offered some consulting sessions. And so these were really designed for teams and departments if they had specific needs. You know, they've attended our Webex 101 sessions, they've attended some of the practice sessions, but they're still needing that one-on-one help. So the team leads would contact us and say, hey, these are the issues, or these are the experiences that we are needing to occur with Webex, so we can be able to help our colleagues around the system. So one of our first consulting sessions was actually with an OTS department, the call center. And so, because they would have a lot of students and faculty asking all of these different questions. So we were able to design a course specifically for their needs. And so we actually get a lot of these still, especially as we are still in the virtual environment, and as a lot of people are wanting to still host their conferences virtually and different things like that. So those are more specific hands-on to different departments. And so as we mentioned, Webex is always changing. And so as an OD team, we try to keep up with those trainings. And so just a little hint for y'all, we are actually in the process of designing a new Webex session. Still working on the titles, but you know, we have like a What's Up Webex or something like that, designed to go over some of the updates that we have. And specifically, one of the really neat functions that they have right now is Webex Assistant. And so this really helps with our accessibility services, because it helps with our closed caption needs to where it automatically grabs the conversations that are going on to help with that. So that's exciting. So just be on the lookout for that. And then I'm going to turn it back over to Melissa to talk about some of our conferences.
Great, thank you. So our conferences and our large events were, as you can probably imagine, some of our most well-attended offerings that we had. A few of them are here. You know, our Culture and Action Conference was in October. Our Leadership Development has Alumni Mini Conference, along with some Executive Speaker Series, Faculty Symposium, and then we even had a part-time mini conference, and that was actually not a thing previously, and it was something that was launched during this past year. So even though we were virtual, still offering some new events, because again, we had the information, the feedback data that our part-time employees would like something like that. So we continued to implement that as we went forward. we knew we still wanted to offer them. There was a lot of discussion at first, how do we do it? What would that look like? But it was important. People really voiced that, they liked these events. They wanted to see them continue, even if it had to be in the virtual format. It wasn't just the learning, but it provided a way for our employees to connect in a time that otherwise maybe seemed a little isolated, and we seemed a bit disconnected from each other. So it helped bring us together as one LSC as well. But we use this opportunity, of course, to also gather the data to see what's happening, what's going on. Some of the information that we are able to collect through these opportunities is just even through the attendance, seeing who was there, but looking at location, even our roles. So that helps us determine, what are our faculty most needing and wanting, and what are our part-time employees most interested in. So we're able to get some information like that. And then additionally, we send out a survey always, and do that in various ways. Sometimes there's a QR code at the end, there's a follow-up email with a link, and then just some focus groups and word of mouth. And by using all of that, we get some really good input on what do we like, what do we not have that we need to implement or change up a little bit to make it better in the future. And really, if we go Family Feud and think survey says, what the main thing we found through all of this, especially over the past year, is that just like your information in the Mentimeter showed, we missed the face-to-face, but we got a huge amount of feedback that there was an aspect of the virtual environment that people really liked. Some of them had a position where they can't really leave their desk, or they can't always drive across town to attend it at another campus, or maybe they could only attend a couple hours and it's not usually worth the drive to do that or that easy to do it. So they enjoyed the virtual aspect of it. So this helped us see that, moving forward, we've got to take that into consideration too. And what are our events and conferences going to look like moving forward? So, and we'll talk about that a little bit as we close and think about what are some of the things we're planning on in the future based on all of this data and feedback. So Jessica, I'll send it back to you to talk about kind of what do we consider with our learning experiences.
And so Mel gave a great introduction with all of the data that we've been taking in as a department. And so with that, there are three things that we really wanted to consider when we were looking at the experiences that we were wanting to offer to our LSE learners, especially in this new virtual environment. And so the first thing was the relevancy. We wanted to be able to offer the greatest learning needs that needed to be addressed. And so we talked to key stakeholders about all of this information. And so some of the feedback that we got and some of the information was we offered some brand new sessions, some specifically to our current situations. And so some of those sessions were staying LSE focused while remote, where we focused on our LSE cultural beliefs and how we were able to utilize those to be sure that we were still meeting our strategic goals while we were remote. And then we also had a really engaging 3-part series titled Winning Through Disruption. And then also one of my favorites was taught by Melissa, and it was called Pivot. And it was entirely centered around a Friends theme, and just talked about how, in these current times that we just need to pivot. We were going this one direction, and COVID threw a curveball to us, and we just had to completely change our direction. And then the next thing that we had to think about was availability. So as we were in the process of transitioning, we understood that people wouldn't be available for the current sessions and offerings that we had planned. A lot of those sessions were multiple hours long, ranging from 2 to 4 or even all day sessions, because we had a lot of interactive activities associated with those. And right now, the people just didn't have the time. Everyone was adjusting to the virtual environment, people were also adjusting to new job duties. I mean, what we had initially done in the office was not what we were doing at home. And so there was just a lot of learning outside of our initial roles to be able to, to sit in a multiple hour long session. And so with that, we offered some sessions ranging between 30 minutes to an hour. That really seemed like the sweet spot from our feedback, that people could, they could have the time to set aside for the 30-minute to an hour sessions. And so we also recorded a lot of those. So those are our recorded webinars. Therefore, people could go back and watch the same content that we had in a live webinar. So still get the same information, but they were able to kind of work it at their own pace. And so we also did some newly designed courses that used previous content, but kind of put a new spin on that. And so one of our popular sessions with that was Clifton Strengths and Social Distancing. And so this was a very popular session that our instructional designer, Dr. Timothy Sandals, did. And he really focused on understanding and utilizing our strengths while we adjust to the new social distancing rules. And so that was a pretty neat session. And he used, I don't know if anyone has taken the traditional Clifton Strengths course, but that is a 4-hour course, and he was able to condense some of the Clifton Strengths into 2 sessions that were 30 minutes, and one of them was an hour. And so that was a great task that he did that was able to be well attended. And then lastly, we looked at facilitators. And so we wanted to be sure that we were sharing with our colleagues that they were hearing and learning from our stakeholders and decision makers, as well as innovators. So with that in mind, our executive director, Dr. Alicia Friday, she coordinated a panel discussion that was titled Riding the Tiger, Leading in Times of Crisis. And so this panel had many key players, and most especially our chancellor, Dr. Steve Head, and they really talked about just why decisions were being made, and they were able to open up that transparent dialogue that we really needed at that time, because we had all of these questions, and we just needed to know. And so that panel really helped us dive into our quote unquote new normal. And so another popular session that we had was with Alana, and excuse me if I say this wrong, Zikovic, and she's the founder and CEO of Work, and she hosted a session that was called Remote Work, Connectivity, Productivity, and Resilience. And in this session, she discussed some tips and tricks to help with our newly overlapping work and personal environments, because I don't know about y'all, but that was an interesting transition to know, am I working from home or am I, at home working? It was just kind of, we needed those boundaries, and we needed ideas to help us be productive as we transitioned. And so it was a really fun session to where she actually walked on a treadmill the whole time that she was on there, just kind of driving home that she needed movement to help with her productivity and her innovative thinking. And so it really encouraged participants to find our own ways to promote our own connectivity and resilience throughout that time. And so with that in mind, we are going to hop back to Menti. And so you can go to menti.com, use the code 5826878, and Mel just dropped it in the chat. Thank you. And we are going to just take a quick quiz to see if, there we go. Here's our question. Okay, so what sessions did you attend during the time frame of March 2020 to March 2021? And so we have our Clifton Strengths, our Leadership Development 5 Languages of Appreciation, Setting up your virtual office, that was a Webex session. We had our faculty development practice session, and then we had the panel discussion that I mentioned earlier, Riding the Tiger and Leading in Times of Crisis, and then our remote work connectivity, productivity, and resilience session. Okay. Awesome. And let me see, we have one more question. See if it goes through. Okay, it looks like I clicked too quick. If y'all are able to get in, you're going to enter a name to participate. And so it's just one quick question just to see what you think the most attended course was from during our time in the pandemic. So from March 2020 to March 2021. Ooh, y'all are good. Yes, our faculty development Webex practice session was the most attended. It actually had over 150 people total attend those sessions. So great job. And so give me just one second. We are going to get back to our presentation. So thank y'all for that. We always enjoy incorporating our mentee presentations. I feel like it helps with our engagement. And so with that, that brings us to some specific areas that we wanted to focus on for our engagement efforts. And so here we have our OD catalog, and this is where you can find our current semester offerings, either by department, by month, or even by category, such as advanced equity options. And so that's really a great resource that we have. And then we also have our annual report. And so if you go to the bottom of our OD intranet page, you will find our annual report. And this was something that our department had, we've really been wanting to incorporate this for a while. And so during the pandemic, it was really a great time for us to create this. And so through a lot of hard work and collaboration with many people across the system, we were able to create and release the inaugural report last September. And we are actually in progress of completing our next OD report, so be on the lookout for that starting in September. And then second, we have our one-stop shop. And so this is a unique resource where you can find information that's not just for OD, it's actually system-wide. And so you can find resources on how to access your VPN from home, as well as some part-time specific resources. And so that's something really new that we've started this fiscal year. And it's really a great stop for everyone. And so again, we also have advanced equity efforts that are unique to Lone Star, as well as some outside resources for you to have some training, some books, podcasts, anything that you can mention or think of, it is in that one-stop shop. And then lastly, we have our employee appreciation wall. And so this was something that our Creative, Strategic, and Initiatives Department, our CSI department, facilitated this year to help with an employee engagement and appreciation. Because I don't know about y'all, but after the year that we've had, man, I just wanted some positivity. You know, I just wanted to see and hear all of the great things that were happening at Lone Star College. And so that's what this is. And so it's just a visual representation of just the great work that our colleagues are doing around here. And so our CSI department created this wall, as we're calling it, using Padlet, another engagement tool that we can use in meetings and in classrooms. And it was just a great way to to lead up to Employee Appreciation Day that happened this past March. And so if you get a chance, it's still up. You can still go look at it. We will try to drop these links in the chat in a little bit. And then, so that was kind of like our physical engagement. And then we have our social media. So we really want to stay involved with our colleagues and those outside of LSC. So we have our Facebook page, our YouTube channel, Twitter, and LinkedIn. And all of these sources, we offer tips and tricks in higher ed. We offer some interesting data. We highlight different history months and some stats and stories around that. We celebrate our leadership development graduates. I don't know if y'all know, but the 2020 cohort of the Academy is graduating today. And so we want to be sure that we celebrate those successes. And so we like to stay connected. So feel free to follow us on all of these formats because it is fun to see what we are doing. And I will turn it over to Melissa.
Great. So as we get ready to close out today, you know, we have a lot of information that we've gathered, but you know, you're like, well, okay, now what? This is great. This is interesting, but what are we doing with it? And we're really using it in so many ways to help guide us in what we offer, when we offer it, how we offer it. We've used information not just from the feedback and surveys, but we use Power BI very heavily with my workshop. So if you ever see our sessions, you know, in the email blast with the learning opportunities, and you see the LD for leadership development in front of it, or OD, that's how we help pull that into Power BI. So that's the reasoning behind it. It's open to anyone, but that's helps pull those specific courses into Power BI for us to track our opportunities. And so, you know, we use all of this, pull it together, look at trends, look at what people are needing and saying. And so moving forward, even before this, before the pandemic, you know, so much, I'd say 90+% of what we did was face-to-face. And although we are excited to get back to face-to-face, and we'll do that, we're not going to go back to how it was before. We're going to continue to offer more virtual opportunities, on-demands, micro-learnings, that type of thing as well. It was interesting what we shared at the beginning from that Inc.com article about the trends. It pretty much reflects what we found in our data too for organizational development going forward. Our larger events and conferences, we're looking at next year doing those in a hybrid format. So although we'll have the opportunity to come face to face, we can stream it as well. So those who aren't able to come can still participate and be there and be involved and have that learning opportunity. So there's a lot moving forward that we're building and planning based on what we found through this data. And, you know, we're always looking for feedback too. We really do use that to guide us in where we go. So if you have any, feel free to share it with us at any time. But we want to leave a few minutes too for questions. So does anyone have any questions? I'm not sure if you can unmute, but I know you can put it in the Q&A and we'll get it there. So feel free to drop any questions, thoughts there, and we can get to those. I don't think I've seen any come through yet. Okay, I don't see any, but you can always find us, yeah, as Jessica shared, you know, through our OD, through our email, our social media. If you think of something, if you're like me and think of it down the road, feel free to reach out to us at any time for any questions or feedback. We thank you so much for your time today. Hope you all have a great weekend. Find some time to dry out. Enjoy your time and enjoy the rest of Data Camp as well. Thank you for being here.
Yes, thank y'all so much.
Oh, thanks, Barbara. Thanks, Sarah.
Thanks, y'all. That was really great.
Thanks, Cameron.
Thanks,
Thanks for
Cameron.
your help. Yeah,
Yes.
couldn't have done it without you, that's for sure.
You guys did it all.
No. Good, good. All right. Cameron, I'll pass this back to you. I don't know if I
Perfect.
can. Let's see. Yes, in case you need that.
Okay.
And do you
And
want
when
me to
you,
stop recording? Well, actually, I just passed it to you, so I guess I can't anymore.
that's even better.
Okay, good. Good deal.